y'all are having, no? Not? Cool. Okay, sorry. So, my voice is kind of wrecked, so I don't really feel like wandering over here and yelling into the audience. And Allison's,
I'm always quiet anyways.
yeah, you should stand, like, closer to the thing.
I said I'm always quiet anyways.
Yeah, cool. So, if you have problems, like, hearing either of us, just, like, make obvious hand signals or something, because I'm kind of oblivious. And whatever, we're cool to go. Alright, so, again, welcome officially, because now it's on video, to Unmasking Miscreants. I'm clearly not Allison, and she's clearly not Brandon, so we can get that straightened out. Yeah, so we're going to be unmasking some people. And Allison has a newfound obsession for Unicode ASCII art. So, yeah.
ASCII art is awesome.
Yeah. So the About Us slide is kind of ubiquitous.
I do stuff and I go on the internet.
Yeah.
He does stuff too.
Yeah, basically, it's really not that important or that interesting. If you care, come talk to us, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. So, why are we interested? Well, two reasons. There are bad people on the internet, and they're dumb. So, this is from an article that was published by via Brian Krebs. Basically, we did the tracking of a particular threat actor who was running one of the most popular booter services of the time. And if you haven't seen one of our previous talks, booters are basically DDoS for hire. So this is the type of OPSEC these people have. As you can possibly not read, so I'm sorry, this is basically a complete diatribe of his life and his accomplishments on basically a hacker forum. So not the best place to put a lot of personal data. Also, I'll go back real quick to one of the animations. Putting your nickname on your back, not a good idea. So what does OPSEC mean? And to really understand what's going on in these slides and why some of this stuff should be considered funny to y'all, OPSEC is basically proactive paranoia. Don't be stupid. Be quiet, or else the table gets thrown. And there's an awesome OPSEC article by the Gruck. If you need the link later, we'll give it to you. It's really easy to find. It's just called Operational Security for Hackers. He's extremely paranoid, and for a good reason. Yeah. So, sorry, I feel like I'm hogging everything, but this is the social stuff. She's the technical stuff, so it's cool. So some of the common actor traits that we come across. The predominantly male, not terribly surprising. Sorry, ladies, you tend to be a lot smarter at this. It happens. They're about 14 to 22 are the actors we're interested in. They tend to be about middle-ish class, which makes sense. They have the time and the social background to have computers and decent, stable internet access. They tend to live at home. Their income is limited, and any income that they do gain can go directly to hobbies. They don't have to go to living expenses, etc. And one of the more interesting things is, I guess, is social interaction is almost entirely online. And that doesn't mean that they're antisocial. Quite the opposite. In fact, they're extremely social. But the medium by which they choose to be social is quite different than what most kids would have done, 10 years ago. And so these are two of the communities that we tend to, for lack of a better term, stalk, Forum Corner and Hack Forums.
Yeah, so a little word of warning in all of these activities, you are playing with fire if you decide to track these people down. The problem with trying to track these people down is that it's really easy to get the wrong identity. They could be faking information, or you could have just made a mistake in your investigation. So if you do manage to find someone, either keep it to yourself or report it to the authorities. I don't recommend harassing them or contacting them in any way. And all these people here, we never directly contact any of these people. Most of the time when we're trying to find people on these forums, it's really more for practice. Hack forums is like our shooting range for finding people. And most of the time we don't even do anything with it, but it's just very interesting how much info is out there.
but we have gotten results, and we'll show those to you at the end of the show. So what type of information do you look for? What is interesting? So some of the things that you look for are outlier behaviors, people that have been ostracized from a community, either by bannings or by complaints of scamming, or just given basic forum infractions. You can track a user's behavior by how they, literally how they behave on a forum. You also look at the people at the opposite end of the spectrum. You look for people that vouch for them, who they're associated with, whether you keep seeing consistent vouches from the same group of people. You start to build limited social networks of who you're looking into. You also look at people that have purchased reputation. There are a number of ways in which you can do this, either by buying vouchers, buying Twitter followers, etc., or by simply buying a tag status that says, "Hey, I'm premium now." Yeah. All that means is you pay $20 to some dude on the internet to have a premium tag graphic. Yeah, real awesome there. You also look for multi-community membership and participation. This is to better get better overlapping data. Not essential, but it's very helpful. So who do you look for? Again, those premium or sponsored sellers. If you've got a sticky thread on a forum, read it. This sticky for a reason. It's important. Figure out who is behind that thread, because those are definitely the most interesting targets.
I thought you were doing this one.
Okay, fine.
Also.
I'll take this one.
And then I get the next one.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know what the next one is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys. This one's fun. So, someone's bad. What do you do now? Google. Google's awesome. And it caches a whole lot of stuff. Even if someone has deleted their Twitter account, a lot of the times you can find those cache posts. So always check. Spokeo is also pretty awesome. It's puts up a slight paywall, but you can glean enough information from it to get things from an alternate source. Check usernames.com. You're looking for username reuse. You're looking for essentially an establishment of identity. So reverse image searches are cool. This isn't a Maltego presentation, but I will give a shout out to it. It's awesome. If you've never used it, you're missing out. But you're looking to get as much information as humanly possible so that you can sift through that information at a later date and look for the overlaps and relationships between individuals. And actually, Adrian has an awesome page on Iron Geek, and it's in really small text, but it's actually doxing, footprinting, and cyberstalking. And there's a lot of tools that are listed in there. So you can try to take a picture of the slide, but I just recommend going to that page because all this stuff is on there.
Just search for those keywords and you'll probably get it.
And the NSA will probably not like you very much, but that's okay. You know, they don't like anybody.
So, I wonder if I can take this mic and walk around with it. Okay.
Just don't drop it.
That would be... Okay. So anyway, on the previous slide, when we were talking about sifting through all that data and looking for relationships, this picture really highlights how thorough you have to be. So one of these people that we found had a Hack Forums account, and he was selling bots and running a booter and all sorts of stuff that's illegal. And in some of his old posts, he linked to his YouTube account because he was settling some kind of dispute, and he posted a video as proof. But he had other videos on his YouTube account, and he actually had a ton of videos. And we were watching them and seeing what was on there. And none of them had his name, except for this one video about his terrarium. And just for about 2 seconds in the entire video, the camera randomly focused on the background of the image, and it showed a certificate of recognition with his name and his middle school.
Well, that is a pretty cool snake, though.
Yeah, so that was about 2 seconds in over half an hour of video, and you just have to.
Boring.
It was really boring. I'm sorry.
Please don't put boring stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, but it's still not a defense. Being boring is not a defense, because if we can find this, other people can find much more interesting things. Let me put this back.
Yep. I'll take the Maltego part.
Yeah.
So I guess I did add a little bit about Maltego. So there are a lot of ways to manually do server sniffing. There's lots of web applications to grab that. If you don't know how to do a who is on a command line, learn. things like dig and registrant searches. But Maltego is a great way to represent this information graphically, and I'll show you a quick graph a little bit later about what that looks like. It's really about keeping organized. You need to be able to document what you are doing because someone else is going to have to follow this logic at some point. And if it's useless to you in 3 days, it's sure as hell going to be useless to law enforcement. So Allison does more of the manual inspection stuff.
Yep. So if that Google dorking thing, it's really easy to use Google to find all the indexed pages on a website. So you just type in cite : the website. Tamper data is really good for getting headers of servers. So if you want to find out what they're running, BERT proxy is another way that you can view headers when you visit the site and just look at the traffic you're sending. What does WhatWeb do again?
WhatWeb basically identifies CMSs.
Right, it identifies
and,
CMSs,
right.
And I've never used it before.
Well, it's
You've used it though.
Yeah, because I'm a noob. It's not my fault. Well, we had another use for tamper data too. You want to talk about that?
Which one was it?
PayPal.
Oh yeah. So a lot of these malicious sites use PayPal for payment, and a lot of them try to hide their PayPal address by getting a merchant account. And when you go to the payment page, it shows the name of the business rather than the email. But you can use tamper data to look at the traffic you're sending, and then the email is in some of the headers that you send.
It's actually in one of the first GET requests that goes. Even if it's being redirected from the page itself, that still loads.
Yep.
And it comes up right in tamper data. And we actually showed that to PayPal, and they were interested, to say the least.
Yeah.
So this is Allison's specialty.
Well, you use Maltego a lot more than I do. Or, oh, sorry.
Way to pay attention there.
I thought you went to another slide. Okay, anyway, Cloud DDoS solutions. A lot of malicious websites hide behind DDoS protection, partly to avoid being DDoSed by other script kiddies, partly because it obfuscates where they're hosted. So if you want to send abuse complaints, they end up going to the DDoS protection service rather than their actual host, and that can slow down the process a lot. So I found a way to bypass cloud DDoS protection, and I presented it at Black Hat last month, but I'm going to give you the content of the presentation now.
In about 2 minutes.
Yeah, in a few minutes. Right, so I called it No Cloud Allowed, and there are a number of techniques that you can use. There's a script that we release, and there's also manual techniques. So all of these are going to be demonstrated in a minute. But essentially what it is when you set up cloud DDoS protection, it's DNS based. So you point your DNS to the filter, and then the filter acts as a reverse proxy. So the weakness behind this setup is that if an attacker can find your origin IP, the original server that everything's hosted at, it can just connect to it directly. And it can either DDoS it or find out where it's hosted or attack it in other ways. So there's a lot of software out there that will betray the origin IP of a server, and I set up an example page, and we'll demonstrate that in a couple minutes.
Do you want to demonstrate that now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Just tell me when to pause and you can make talks, okay?
Let me press the button.
Oh, you can
I want to press the button.
Fine, you can press the button.
Thank you. Okay, so on nocloudallowed.com, that's the page that...
We have to move
the
browser over, sorry.
Oops. Okay.
Okay, now you can press the button.
Can we make it full screen?
No.
Really?
That's about what you get.
Oh, okay. Alright, so I have here a page I set up on nocloudallowed.com. It's behind Encapsula DDoS protection. And on the first box, you can enter in any arbitrary URL, and the PHP code behind it is HTTP or something get contents in it. It sends a GET request to the page to download the contents of it. And then the second box, it will send an email to any email address in the box. And both of these functions can be used to betray the origin IP of the server. So on the left, there I have tailed the access log. So if anybody sends a request to my server that I'm connected to on the left, it'll add a new line and you can see the details, including the IP and what they requested. So we see here we're putting in the URL to my site, ilovesyspa.com, and submitting.
When did you buy that domain?
I don't remember. I think it was for a joke or something. I haven't used it. And now we see the origin IP of the server. That's that 54.226 IP. And now we're sending myself an email. And yes, that is my email address. And the mail has come in, and I will very slowly load this page.
Riveting.
Yes, I know. The suspense is just killing me. So when you send an email from an Apache server, it's sent directly from the server. I don't have any mail forwarding configured or anything like that. So when I send the mail out, in the headers, it's going to have the source IP. So in Gmail, if you receive a mail, you can open it up very slowly and then view the original mail with all the headers and everything.
Is that going to take a long time to load too? Because you can fast forward.
Really?
Yeah.
No, just give it a couple seconds. I swear it'll, yes, there.
Yeah.
So it's got the IP address in the headers, which matches the IP address in the access log. So that's two ways to betray the origin. And what am I doing now? Right, running the no cloud allowed script. So first, if you run the script with a -- help, it'll give you all of the parameters. And then, let me pause this now. Okay, so it's really hard for you guys to read probably. So the command is perl nocloudallowed.pl, and then it's -u, and then the URL, and then -i, and I give it an IP range. So what it does is it sends a request for that website to every single IP in that range, and then once it retrieves the home page, it will do a string match for known contents of the web page. So the home page of nocloudallowed.com, it says you will never find me. So what I'm doing is basically I'm sending a request to every single IP in that range. The host header is manually set to nocloudallowed.com, and then once I receive the contents, I do a string comparison and I try to see if the words "you will never find me" is in the home page or not. And if it is, then it's a match. And the -t is a manual timeout, makes a timeout after 2 seconds. Alright, so there you go. It scanned every single IP in that /24 and found the IP that matches. Now here I'm manually editing my host file. First I've commented out that IP, so Chrome is going to access nocloudallowed normally. Now you can tell it is behind DDoS protection because they actually modify the page that's returned. It's going to say protected by encapsula. So here I am manually setting the host file. My machine will contact nocloudallowed directly rather than through encapsula. And now when I visit it in Chrome, the little bug there is not there. And if I view the source, there's no JavaScript added to the end of it. So there's several ways that you can bypass cloud DDoS protection.
And where is it available?
At nocloudallowed.com.
Okay. You have to market that stuff.
Right.
Oh, because it's on that screen. So, once you have all the data that you need, you have a pretty complex looking web. And really, one of the biggest things that we use for identifying individuals are emails. And these can be found in Whoisinfo, PayPal accounts, as we've discussed earlier. There's several ways to get them. And there are, every single site that we looked at accepted PayPal.
Well, only for the booters. The people
Right.
that were selling stolen credit cards, totally different story.
Yeah, I would trust them with my PayPal. Right?
Maybe they accept credit card.
So people... Also, database dumps are your friend. The awesome thing is that this community tends to be a little bit cannibalistic. So they hack each other. They do all the work for you. You grab a database, load up your lovely MySQL session on a Amazon box, run a few queries, boom, you've got everything that they've ever wanted and or loved. So the real problem comes from, in order to sell, one must advertise. So you have to find the ads and you have to look for the affiliates. And social media is pretty much the greatest thing ever for stalking. Mostly because it provides a awesome out-of-band access instead of forums and private messages, which can be compromised. People tend to rely on MSN, ICQ, AIM, Skype, Twitter, etc. So one of the real caveats here is to be wary of hacker stolen accounts. Now, this is more of a problem once you get to the higher range of threat actors, I would say.
Yeah.
Usually at the lower end of people that we look at, they're just not that clever.
Yeah, I have to give it this big disclaimer. All the people that we look at are really on the low end of the spectrum. We don't go after people that do carding or real big crimes, because those kinds of people tend to be a lot more paranoid. If they aren't, they've already been arrested. And if there is data out there, it's probably fake. That's why I say you're playing with fire when you do this.
Yeah. So one of the best things is Facebook, because correlating an email to Facebook is extremely trivial.
All you have to do is go in the search bar and paste the email, and that's it.
Yeah. And since people really like linking their work email to their Facebook account, it makes it a lot easier. So one of the other things is you really need to read. If you don't like reading, this really isn't the type of thing for you. Read their forum posts, read their private messages, read what they put on social media, read the way that they interact with everybody. And then also watch. I don't do this part because I get bored, but Allison loves YouTube, and she likes taking screenshots of everything in YouTube. And
it's great. I love watching the videos. I don't watch what's in the foreground. All I do is watch what's in the background. So a lot of the times they will take screen recordings. So when I watch the screen recordings, I don't watch what they're trying to demonstrate. I look in the corner and I look at the weather bug and I see what temperature it is and what city they're in. And I look in the corner and I see all of his MSN friends signing on and signing off. It's really a great source of information.
And it's awesome when they have these super modified desktops that have all this information that's right in front of you. I think it's a rain meter. It was a big thing for a while, and
I think it was called Weatherbug.
No. But there's this big desktop enhancement suite called like rain meter, and it adds all that information in front of you, so it makes it look like a super sweet hacker-y thing. But yeah, there's a lot of information leakage out there. So apparently AOL has something called Livestream, and it's sort of like AIM and Facebook combined, and pretty much it has terrible privacy settings, so anything that you publish on that is freely searchable and available, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's really weird. We've had really good luck with AOL Livestream. Basically, anytime you change your status on AIM, it gets recorded onto Livestream, and it doesn't get deleted unless you specifically remove it and change your privacy settings.
Yeah, and we didn't really know that existed until we were looking for a specific actor. So, you never know what you're going to find sometimes. So really, identification comes down to finding data overlaps. You're using the data that you've grabbed on that you've identified or you've gathered, and comparing that against multiple sources to substantiate what you have found. Really, you can't rely on one search engine or one tool. You need to have a large amount of data to corroborate your findings. So you really don't want to target the wrong person. So reconciling target personas, you're really looking at linking X to Z via Y. Sometimes people use different contact information on various ads, but then they overlap in another place, and then you can link X, Y, and Z. And document, which is something Allison is kind of good at, but not
I'm working on it.
Yeah. So document it. Someone's going to have to follow your logic at some point, and if you can't illustrate what you've done, it's useless. And one of the biggest points and why we were able to identify hackers is you must establish an identity on the internet in order to have a reputation. If you're nobody, nobody's going to buy from you. Unfortunately, if you're somebody, somebody's going to be interested in you. So it's a pretty fine balancing act. And so this is one of the graphs that I've made in Maltego. It's probably damn near impossible to see. But basically what you are in the boxes are Twitter, Facebook, and a dating account that were all linked together. And this was an actor who ran a fairly large booter site for a long time. And he actually used that Twitter account to track the targets that the booter was attacking. But then he had earlier tweeted manually on that account with his like dating profile information, which linked up directly to his Facebook page.
And through all of that, we were able to map his entire social media presence.
Yeah.
And his Twitter account was hilarious. He was using basically a health check service on the site he was attacking. So we could see his tweets go, this website's up, this website's down, up, down, just as he was attacking it.
So it's sort of a zoom in to, this is this actor's huge footprint and the amount of overlap that you can see. I'm not going to go over it point by point, but that's really what you see when you're looking at bad OPSEC. So we've actually gotten results after about a year and a half of research.
So we gave a couple talks at B-Sides in Rhode Island and Boston talking about booters. And one of the things that we noted was that every single booter used PayPal as a form of payment. And then at DerbyCon, one of the PayPal guys came up to me and he's like, I don't want to see our name dragged through the mud. And he's telling this to someone who's been dragging their name through the mud for a while.
Yeah, you're kind of good at that.
I mean, I'm just noting observations, really.
Yeah,
but
they can drag their own name. But
we got in contact. He was really interested in fixing this issue because their service was being used to DDoS people, essentially. And so we gave him an entire workflow to see which PayPal accounts are linked with which booter and so forth. And then he just sent us this statement showing PayPal's stance on the DDoS for hire services.
So it took a year of persistence. It took us being able to document what we did because we had to walk through every step on the phone to demonstrate getting from A to B and then B to C.
Yeah, that was really important. We had this big spreadsheet of booters and PayPal accounts and everything that we could find on these guys. But what the guy from PayPal said was, this is really just hearsay. I need to be able to prove this myself. So we ended up documenting every step and showing him what he needed to do to reproduce our results.
And it looks like they did. They did a pretty good job, apparently. So,
yeah.
So props to them.
It's still going on, so we'll see how things go.
Props to them for at least taking interest and moving in the right direction, other than there are other people who haven't. So, yeah, it's a Prism joke. I don't know if they're even still funny, but it's still funny to me. Sorry. I don't know how badly we're over time, but if you have questions, go for it. Or otherwise, we'll be wandering around somewhere.
Yeah.